An attorney's dream case. My parents' vita case, the bank. In 1973, my parents managed to gather sufficient funds to construct a modest ranch-style home in the countryside. The local bank approved the mortgage, and the institution entered into a contract to provide Bob with the finances required to build the house. As it turned out, Bob was overcommitting himself throughout the town, leaving his oblivious subordinates to handle the actual construction. The project took progressively longer, with an increasing amount of work needing to be demolished and redone. We are not referring to simply using the wrong paint color or hastily nailing crooked trim here. The architect neglected to erase a line on the blueprints, resulting in the framers constructing a wall that obstructed the bathtub. My mother was cautioned not to place anything heavy in the kitchen cabinets because they were affixed to the drywall, rather than the studs, using only a few roofing nails placed through the back of each cabinet. The garage door frame ended up in the living room instead of facing the driveway, and the issues continued. When the bank's representative arrived for the final inspection, my parents confronted him in the front yard and refused to approve Bob's work. The representative became furious, as the bank had disbursed a considerable sum to Bob. He marched up to the front door and pulled on the doorknob, at which point the entire door and its frame collapsed onto him. It had simply been wedged, not nailed, into its position. The bank contacted Bob, who finally appeared to oversee the project himself. The only problem was that Bob was no more skilled at building a house than his subordinates had been. My parents still refused to sign off on the house. My mother was a stay-at-home mother, living in a challenging rental situation with 2 small children, while my father was juggling 2 jobs during this ordeal. Throughout the entire process, both the bank and Bob treated them poorly, intimidating my mother and deceiving my father. What should have been an exhilarating experience for my parents turned into a nightmare. My mother cried frequently, and my father became depressed. At last, the bank threatened my parents with foreclosure, while Bob threatened to sue them for breach of contract because the bank had ceased making further payments to him. So my weary parents consulted an attorney and explained their predicament: plumbing, electrical, tiling problems, and the entire regrettable situation. My parents felt apprehensive. They had only their modest savings for a down payment, so if this escalated into a prolonged legal battle, both the bank and Bob would come out victorious. The attorney, Tom, was understanding, but my father could see from Tom's facial expressions as he reviewed the paperwork that he and my mother were facing a grim reality. Then, unexpectedly, Tom smiled. "Let's arrange a meeting with everyone," he informed my parents. "Tomorrow." Thus, my parents, Tom, the bank's representative, the bank's lawyer, Bob, and Bob's lawyer convened at the bank. Tom didn't give anyone else a moment to begin. He said, "Well, my clients have decided they no longer wish to retain this house. Please remove it." Everyone else began to laugh. "Remove it, have you lost your mind?" Tom, with a grand, theatrical gesture, placed a deed on the table. "My clients own the land the house is on outright. They no longer wish to keep the house. Remove the house from my client's land." Bob's attorney stared at the deed before turning to glare at Bob. "You built a house on land that you do not own." Bob nodded. The bank's attorney started yelling at the bank's representative. "You didn't finance the land the house is on." The representative stuttered. No." Tom responded firmly. "As I stated, gentlemen, you are trespassing on my client's land. I demand that the house be removed and that the land be restored to its original condition, immediately." My father stated that he would always remember the bewildered expressions exchanged among everyone on the other side of the table. Certainly, the bank could foreclose on a house that would not exist by the end of the week, without any means of recovering the funds. They did not even possess the land it stood on. Bob was out the $50,000 he had paid out of pocket, plus he would be responsible for demolishing the house and removing it. Additionally, the bank would undoubtedly want him to repay the initial $50,000 they had given him. Could they have pursued legal action against my parents? Certainly. A foreclosure would have resulted in poor credit for my parents moving forward. They might have lost their down payment. However, to sign off on the house in its current condition would have required thousands of dollars to replace or repair everything, from the roof to the basement, before the house could be deemed safe for habitation. The bank was aware that my parents did not have that kind of money. They were the ones who approved the mortgage. Suddenly, my parents were viewed as model citizens, and it was all merely a huge misunderstanding, with the bank and Bob eager to accommodate them. The house was quickly restored to align with the original blueprints and specifications at no extra cost to my parents, but at significant expense to Bob. My parents signed the mortgage. Bob received the remainder of his payment, just about breaking even on the construction. The bank's representative was terminated, and Tom, the remarkable attorney, acquired a legendary success story to share with fellow attorneys for the rest of his career. Before you doubt this account, please keep in mind that 1973 was 50 years ago. Banks operated differently during that era. Smaller rural banks, in particular, were not managed in the same manner as larger city banks. There were far fewer federal regulations, and in a smaller community, people often did not adhere to them anyway. I am fairly certain they do not consistently follow them now. Yes, they constructed a wall through the bathtub. No, I am not fabricating that. I even refrained from mentioning how a plumber left his lunch bag on a partially constructed kitchen cabinet. But the cabinet maker didn't think it was his responsibility to relocate the bag, so he left it there and built the rest of the cabinet around it. I have no idea where Bob found these individuals, but they were remarkable, every one of them. Edit. I must confess that I am greatly surprised by the attention this story has received. The bank and Bob assembled poorly drafted contracts that were essentially unenforceable. My parents' attorney identified this, prompting the bank and Bob to withdraw. I found this intriguing, yet surely this is not the only instance of such occurrences. Aren't contracts routinely created by uninformed individuals? Is this truly so exceptional? I suppose we should be thankful it is. Thank you for reading. Story 2. I, 28M, am starting to lose trust in my partner, 26F. My partner, 26 years old, female, and I, 28 years old, male, have cohabitated for nearly a year and have been in an exclusive relationship for about 2 years. I truly care for my partner. To be completely honest, I have never been this infatuated or obsessed with anyone in my life. One of the qualities I have grown to appreciate over the years is her independence. I have never been involved with someone as self-sufficient as she is, and while it took some time for me to fully value it, I genuinely enjoy this aspect of her. That said, there is one element of her independence that keeps surfacing in a troubling way. A month before we were set to move into our new home, I was at her place doing laundry. I noticed that the clothes I was washing were from her stay the previous weekend, but I was caught off guard when 3 condoms fell out of her pants. This struck me as peculiar because I clearly recalled our messages where I had mentioned that I had just stocked up on condoms in case we had any sexual encounters. I addressed the issue with her calmly, and she expressed remorse for causing me concern, explaining that she just wanted to ensure she had protection available. A few months into our cohabitation, she received an invitation to go out with a new work friend. She works in a predominantly male field, making it challenging for her to find female friends. She appreciates having a social circle outside of myself and my friends, which is completely reasonable, so I stayed at our new place while she was out. At that point, we shared each other's location continuously for safety reasons. However, I also kindly requested that whenever she left a bar to go to another location or was on her way home, she would send a quick text to reassure me of her safety. After about 2 hours of being out, I received a message on Instagram from a girl I had previously hooked up with 3 years earlier. She asked if my girlfriend was out with people at a specific bar. I checked my girlfriend's location and saw that she was indeed there since she wasn't replying to my texts. The Instagram message continued, stating that this girl had seen my girlfriend kiss another man. Understandably, I was taken aback, but I wanted to get the full story from my girlfriend, as it could have been a misunderstanding. When I called her and inquired repeatedly if she was currently at the mentioned location or if she had been there that evening, I was taken aback by her repeated denials. Eventually, she confessed that she had been there. I informed her of what I had heard. She came home, we discussed it, and she assured me that nothing inappropriate had occurred. Things settled down for a while after that incident, but then last night happened. I had some college friends visiting, and as she works on weekends, she mentioned that she didn't want to join us because she needed to get some rest. That was fine. I expected that response. What transpired next was unexpected. After my friends and I left the first bar, I texted her to let her know which bar we would be going to next. She replied that she was going to have a drink with 2 work friends. One of the male friends she mentioned is a genuinely nice guy who has kids and would never cause any harm. The other is her boss, who has been flirtatious over the past few weeks. My girlfriend is very attractive, which leads to that kind of attention. What slightly frustrates me is that she can be somewhat naive and doesn't shut down the flirting as quickly as I believe she ought to. Regardless, I asked her where they were going, and about an hour later, she replied with one location, but was actually at a completely different one. This spot is one of our favorite bars, and wanting to see her and gauge her boss's behavior, I decided to drop by briefly. We chatted, exchanged kisses, expressed our love for each other, and I suggested that she message me when she left. That was the last I heard from her until I returned home. I do not claim to be flawless, nor do I wish to convey to her or anyone in this subreddit that I distrust her. I do not believe for a second that she would engage in anything underhanded. However, I have no confidence in her boss. I had been monitoring her location to ensure she returned home safely, and I noticed that she dropped him off at his house before heading home. Normally, this wouldn't be a significant issue, but the central concern I have is that my partner prefers to use alternative messaging applications, such as Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, Instagram, etc. I am the first partner who prefers straightforward text messaging. Over the years, I have observed that whenever she goes out with friends, she becomes active on those apps, sharing stories and responding to others, yet rarely sends me a check in text. She argues that since I have her location, I should not need to receive a text from her, or claims that she doesn't use the other apps while out, or insists that I should simply trust her. This makes me feel as though I am a bad partner for wanting to ensure her safety and acknowledge my texts, but perhaps I am overstepping my bounds. When I arrived home, I came in hot, which I regret. I inquired whether her phone functioned properly for messaging or only for those other apps, which was inappropriate of me. We had a brief argument, and I immediately apologized. However, after taking some time to cool down, she asked if I was upset with her. I replied that I was not angry. I simply wanted assurance that she was safe, and that I did not think it was unreasonable to expect a simple text when she moved from one place to another, particularly since I know she checks her phone regularly. I do not want her to be glued to her phone all night while out with friends, but I do want to know that she is well and all right. This escalated into a considerably larger dispute, with accusations that I do not trust her, and she felt that my visit to the bar had portrayed me as untrustworthy. As I attempted to explain my perspective, she continually shut me down, insisting that I do not trust her. I ultimately lost my temper, declared that I would be sleeping downstairs for the night, and walked away. After further screaming and aggravation, we ended up in separate rooms for the night. As I write this, I reflect on a key moment. When I got home and there was a brief period of calm, I gave her a few kisses on the head. Then I noticed that she smelled not only of her perfume, but also as if she had engaged in some form of sexual activity. Whether it was merely with hands or actual penetration, I cannot say, and it could be nothing significant, but I recognize what I sensed, and it distinctly smelled like someone who had just been intimate. Thank you for allowing me to express my concerns. If you choose to comment, I kindly ask that you refrain from being excessively harsh towards my partner while offering your perspective. I care for her deeply, but at this moment, I feel quite lost. Story 3. Ayo, am I losing my best friend? I cannot precisely determine when this began, but I recognize that over the past few months, it has been occurring gradually. Initially, I hesitated to discuss this or bring it up because I did not want to appear possessive, overly attached, or envious. However, after reflecting on it further, I have come to realize it is a genuine concern, and I need advice. I admit that I have biases about such matters, as losing a friend to another person is not the first time I have encountered this. This situation truly began last Friday, at least that was when I first noticed it. At school, we had a pep rally and my friend, a male, age 17, and I, a female, age 18, were waiting outside for one another so we could sit together during the assembly. While we awaited another mutual friend, who is much closer to her than I am, even though I have known her for a year, she immediately went to his side to sit with him. They spent the entire assembly talking and laughing together while I felt like a third wheel in the conversation. Subsequently, I cried for the rest of the day and could not express my feelings since I become nonverbal when I cry. I knew that discussing it would only lead to more tears, but I felt utterly used and unimportant, as if I were nobody's favorite person. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. Another incident that contributed to the situation was when this friend, not him, but the initial friend, had a birthday party planned for today, which I just discovered. She invited many of my friends and acquaintances, yet I did not receive an invitation. The only reason I learned about the party was that the mutual friend was discussing it with my friends right in front of me. I did not bring it up afterward, except briefly via text, where I mentioned not being invited. He asked if he should talk to her about inviting me, but I told him I no longer wished to go since it felt meaningless at that point. I thought we were better friends than that until I realized she behaves that way with everyone. Additionally, they are constantly hanging out together, and I understand we rarely spend time together, particularly because my parents are strict. This makes it challenging to carry out plans I've made. I also seldom see him since he attends college classes. However, when I am finally able to make plans involving him, he seems to lack any effort and does not initiate plans while arranging outings with other people, making me feel like I'm forcing him to engage. Every time we hang out, it feels as though he is not enjoying himself. I am usually the one reaching out to him. If I don't, we wouldn't communicate at all. My birthday also falls in the same month, and she had her celebration just a day after mine, which was yesterday. I had planned my event, anticipating I would not be busy. Naturally, I invited him as he is my best friend. After 5 years, we've experienced many significant moments together, but now I am uncertain about our friendship. I invited him 3 days in advance, but he was unsure if he could attend due to his parents' permission. This didn't make much sense to me, considering he had no issues attending the other friend's birthday. It appeared as though he did not want to go. However, after confirming with his parents, he decided to attend, though there was so much struggle involved to get him there. My birthday party was scheduled at a skating rink, which posed a challenge as it was located far from both the school and my friends' homes. The plan was for all my friends to be dropped off at my house since it was conveniently located for everyone. His house is 15 minutes away. From there, we would carpool to the rink to avoid the hassle of being driven separately, but he insisted on being driven directly to the rink. He also participates in an after-school club that both he and the girl from the assembly attend, which puzzled me since we have that club every week. I knew nothing significant was happening that day, yet he chose to go directly to the rink, making things much more frustrating and stressful for me, as the plan had been organized for weeks. When we were finally together, he expressed his frustration regarding transportation, saying, "The next time you invite me somewhere, don't choose a place that is an hour away," as if I didn't provide him with the original option we had agreed upon. He spent the remainder of the time moping around, while I tried to ensure he wasn't feeling left out or unhappy, attempting to assist him with skating. He is not particularly fond of skating. I had taken him once before, and if I had gone skating on a different occasion, I wouldn't have invited him. However, it was my birthday, and I thought it would be fun for him to join, especially since I had invited some mutual friends. I hoped he would have a better time than during our prior outing, but he made little effort and seemed annoyed to even be there. Prior to this incident, he had asked via text if he could bring along the same friend who had not invited me to her birthday party. I reluctantly said yes, not wanting to create any drama. I suspected she wouldn't be able to attend because her parents dislike last-minute plans, but I agreed anyway, even though my parents were aware of the situation, and we only had room for one additional person. Him. Deep down, I wanted to tell him not to bother attending anymore, given the struggle it was just to have him there, especially since he did not enjoy himself during the time we spent together. Now I feel quite stuck. I genuinely do not know how to proceed. I have many other friends, so it would not be a problem to spend time with them, but it still hurts to feel like someone's best friend and not be treated as such. He acted very passive-aggressively towards me throughout the night, yet I made every effort to ensure he was somewhat enjoying himself. I wish he would have supported me more. Every time we have hung out lately, he seems to get bored, and during our previous skating outing, He skated maybe 15 of the time while I tried to assist him. The rest of the time, he sat on the benches texting another friend. We were only there for about an hour and a half because I ended up sitting with him, feeling sorry that he was alone. You could attribute his inability to skate as an excuse, but this pattern recurs regardless of what we do. Some of my other friends also didn't know how to skate, yet they participated and enjoyed the experience, while he remained annoyed and withdrawn. One detail I overlooked was that a couple of months prior, an incident occurred between the two of them that led to a significant argument, resulting in them not speaking for a while. I attempted to help him navigate that situation, but he did not heed my advice. However, I was ultimately right, and she returned, leaving me wishing she hadn't. The moment she reappeared, it felt as though he had lost interest in me. I am uncertain about everything.